In topic 3, we're going to learn a really powerful way of graphing, and that is using a point and a slope. And this works very specifically for a line. Okay, so that idea of point plotting is really, it's a wonderful way of graphing. It always works. It's a little tedious. It's especially nice for things that are non-linear, but when you're dealing with a line, there are some shortcuts to graphing, and we want to learn one of those right now. Okay, so we're going to learn how to graph using just a point and just a slope. Now, you have to have a point and slope of the same line, but there you have it. You can use those two features to graph very nicely. And that's another powerful thing about slope-intercept form of a line. If we can solve an equation for y, we get the slope and the y-intercept for free, okay? So what we have to do is we have to plot a given point. So we have to know a point on the line. We would plot that first, and then from that point, you apply the slope. So remember, the numerator, the rise of the slope, tells us to go up or down. The denominator, or the run of the slope, tells us to go left or right. So you plot your point. From that point, apply the slope at least once, and then you've got 2 points on a line, which is the minimum you need. Connect, and you've got a line, okay? So let's look at a couple of examples. So example 4 says, graph the line that goes through the provided point and has the given slope. So we've got two examples. We have a part A and a part B that we can look at here. So let's go ahead and look at part A. And what I think I want to do is I want to blow this up a little bit more so it's really clear what's going on here, so you can see it very nicely. So we may have to do a little scrolling, but hopefully you can see that pretty well. Okay, so for part A, we have a slope of -2/3, and then we have the point -1/4. So let's talk just briefly about the slope for a moment. So when you have a slope that is negative, put the negative somewhere, okay? Either put it distinctly in the numerator or distinctly in the denominator. It doesn't matter which, and I'll show you when we graph this that you can actually do both and you end up on the same line. So if we think of this as -2/3, that tells us to go down 2 and then to the right 3. However, if I think of this as 2 over -3, it's still a negative slope, but in this case, we would go up 2 and to the left 3. So just be really careful when you apply your slope, and always know that you can apply it in two different directions, okay? So let's go ahead and practice here. We want to start by plotting the point -1/4. So at the origin, I go to the left 1, and then I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is a point that I know is on the line. This is kind of like that game Battleship. Do you know the game Battleship, where you and your opponent each have 5 ships, they're different sizes, and you plot them on a grid, and your opponent tries to figure out where that ship is, and they try to sink them. So as long as you can get one hit on the ship, it's pretty easy to figure out where the rest of the ship is. The slope tells us where the rest of the ship, or where the line is. So having a point is great, but the slope tells us the direction that line is going to go through that point. So from the point, we want to apply the slope. So let's apply this slope first. It's the same slope, but let's apply this version where we have the negative in the numerator. So that means from the point that we just plotted, I would go down 1, 2, and then to the right, 1, 2, 3. And that would put me right here. What if instead, though, I applied the second version of the slope? And in that case, I would have, from the original point, I would go up 2, and then to the right, or to the left, 1, 2, 3, which would put me right here. Okay, so you can always apply the slope in two directions. Okay, so once you figure out the direction of the slope kind of initially, invert the numerator and denominator's directions, and you'll end up on the same line. So again, if you start by going down and to the right, you can instead go up, but then you'd have to go to the left, but you're going to be on the same line. So by having a point and a slope, we have a really easy way of graphing a line. Okay, now for the second example, it is a special one. So you have to kind of go back to when we first talked about slope. So we could have, let me give myself a little bit more room. So we could have a slope is positive. So we could have a positive slope. That meant the line was going uphill. We could have a negative slope. That meant the line was going downhill. We could have an undefined slope. And then we could have a zero slope. And those were our two special occasions. Those were the two special lines we had. So when you had an undefined slope, it ended up being vertical. When you had zero slope, it ended up being horizontal. Okay, so you have to remember m = 0 tells us that the line is horizontal. Okay, So here, without really having to do any work, we just know that we're going to go through the point 3, 2, and we have to be a horizontal line from there. So we would start by plotting the point. So at the origin, I would go to the right 1, 2, 3, and then I would go up 2. I know my line has to go through that. I know my line has 0 slope. That means it doesn't go up, it doesn't go down, it's just flat. So I'm going to be a horizontal line through the point 3, 2. And there you have it. Okay. So make sure you take some time, practice graphing using a point and a slope. And it really is going to be a fairly significant time saver.